guys, this is Isabella Illustrations here and welcome to a new video. Today's video is going to be my top 10 favorite animated series. This is definitely subject to change. It's not always going to be like this order that I'm going to tell you they're in today. So anyway, without further ado, let's get started. Alright guys, so the first one on my list is The Owl House. Now Miraculous is on this list, but however, even though I love the show, I know it has flaws, so it's not the best show out there, but The Owl House definitely is what I think more shows should be like and what more shows should be doing. Mostly in the department of character arcs and taking the time to get the characters from where they started to where they're gonna be at the end. I see a lot of shows always rushing this. The Owl House, however, takes its time with its characters and their development. It takes time with their emotional struggles, which I really think needs to be addressed more in animation and taken the time to explore, because shows typically rush through that stuff, and I find it is so much more compelling as a human being to see someone else going through something, but it being realistically depicted. And for it to be realistic, emotional trauma takes time to get through. It doesn't take one day or one episode. So The Owl House definitely handles its emotional trauma of its characters well, in terms of Luce and Hunter, who are my favorite characters. Don't get me wrong, I love Ida and I love everybody else, but their character arcs specifically are very well explored and very well done, and I am really proud of the Owl House for it accomplishing this big thing I find is lacking in cartoons. Also, for me to love a cartoon, it has to have a good villain. Bellows is probably one of the best Disney villains. Like, I could watch that show just for him. I don't know what it is about him. He's just kind of so twisted, and it's kind of like, yeah, there's no redemption for this guy, but I'm just here to enjoy the evilness and see him defeated. So, I don't know if it's the calmness and how he, like, carries himself. It's just really off-putting, and it's kind of, like, really weird. But I enjoy it wholeheartedly, and I think this show is fantastic. I highly recommend it. So the second show on this list is going to be Tangled the series. I love Tangled the series. It was probably Disney's best after Star for me and before The Owl House. So I absolutely loved the show. I loved how it expanded on the lore of Rapunzel's hair and the powers that came with that and where that came from. I love that we got some more backstory into Mother Gothel and how she knew all the stuff that she knew. We got some pretty great twists in the show about characters who are reoccurring, and I was in shock, but I was also in amazement, and I was just like, oh my god, these are great! And I just loved it. It was an enjoyable ride. Again, character development in this show was actually handled quite well, and I loved how the characters specifically handled the emotional impacts of certain events that were really difficult, and I found that they actually did a really good job handling that. They didn't rush through it completely. They did take their time a little bit. It's not as well done as The Owl House, but they definitely did it pretty well. And I love the new characters that the Tangled the series brought, like Varian, Cassandra. Love those two. And I love a lot of other characters that I probably don't remember the names of, but they're in my head. And the adventures were so much fun. Rapunzel got some great development. And overall, it was a really fun journey. And the mysteries were great. And I loved watching the show every week it came out on Disney Channel. Next is My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic. This show was the first show that got me into fandom, first show that got me into fan fiction, all that jazz. I love this cartoon. It'll always hold a special place in my heart. That show was just amazing. In terms of length, it went on for 9 seasons, and that's an accomplishment that most cartoons don't make. So that was an amazing feat. I know towards the end it got a bit I started to not enjoy it as much, but the show had amazing characters, amazing villains. I loved Twilight Sparkle. I loved all of her friends. Their character journeys were pretty great too. They started from somewhere in the first season and then ended up somewhere completely different, achieving their dreams by the end of it. And we got some great characters along the way that were introduced, like Starlight Glimmer and her redemption, which I felt was handled great. I loved all of it. It was just the most amazing roller coaster ride I've ever been on, and that show is just great. I loved the story, stories I should say, and I loved pretty much everything about the show. It was so much fun. You got to learn things as you were watching it, which is something I find is actually quite cool about cartoons nowadays, as they teach lessons. And I think they still did back then, but a lot of people have this misconception that cartoons don't teach you anything, which is false. And My Little Pony taught me a lot about friendship and how to know a real friend from a fake friend, which is really important, I find, in real life for kids to learn, because not all people are really your friend. So, yeah, overall, I love the show, and yeah, I miss it. Alright, next is Star vs. the Forces of Evil. This show has a special place in my heart as well. It is phenomenal. I loved it so much. The first season was, but the rest of the show was pretty great. We got to see Star start off as a person, or a child basically, that had no regard for responsibility or anything like that, to becoming a mature young woman by the end of it, which was really great character development. I loved her and Marco's relationship and how they started out as friends and then eventually it became more. I watched that entire show for those two, basically, and all their adventures. I just loved those two. I love the Kingdom of Muni. I love the whole thing with the kind of racism that went with it, and how the humans and the monsters kind of stays separate. I like that they're trying to teach kids about racism in cartoons. I think that that's very important, because kids are very suggestible at their young age, and I think it's important to teach them good values. So I felt that the show did a good job in that. And personally, I loved Toffee as a villain. I think he was great. I enjoyed him. He wasn't the best Disney villain ever, but yeah, I enjoyed him. And I loved Eclipsa towards the end. I felt she was interesting. I loved all the backstory with Star's mom. I loved the Battle for Muni specials, the 2-parter I think it was. It was really great. Overall, I loved this show. I was so sad when it finished. But at least it had a happy ending, and that's all I could have asked for. Next is an oldie but a goodie. This next one is Sonic the Hedgehog, and not The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. That's a dumb show. I'm talking about Sonic SatAM, as it's known by the fandom. It came out in the 1990s. It's an amazing Sonic show. All fans of Sonic have to watch this. The show is fantastic. I loved all the characters we got that aren't in the games, but they were amazing. I think I enjoy them more than the characters in the games. Like, you have Princess Sally, Bunny, Antoine. Tails is even in there, and he's so cute. He's like young and small, and he's adorable. I love that show. I watched it a lot also for the shipping, I'll have to admit. Sonic and Sally, or Princess Sally, those two, love them. Love seeing them bicker. It was cute. Little banter here and there. The show does have Dr. Robotnik, but it's basically the premise is that he's taken over Princess Sally's kingdom, and so they have to fight, and they're basically called freedom fighters, and yeah, they go on missions to try and stop him, and it's a very fun show. It's very interesting. I love watching this over and over again. And the way it ends, it does end on a cliffhanger, but it's not such a big cliffhanger that if you finish the show, you'll be wanting more, or that it's like, oh shit. It's not like that. But the show definitely ends on a happier note, so I think that you can definitely watch the final season and feel it was concluded, even though it was canceled after season 2. So that was a bit hard to discover, but overall I think it's a great show. I think you guys should watch it. Alright, next is Miraculous Ladybug. Now it is a bit low on the list, but as I said, I wanted it to be like a little bit higher, but not too low, because it is one of my favorites right now, currently. And I just love it for the shipping. Let's just be honest, that's the only reason I watch this show is for Adrien and Marinette, Cat Noir, and Ladybug. Those two. I don't know how I've been putting up with this for so long. Like, we're basically going to be on the 5th season and they're still not together yet. So it's like torture, but also enjoyable torture. Because you do know they're going to end up together in the end. It's just a matter of when and how. So, that's fun. I do enjoy the superhero aspect and the identities being a secret and having that reveal to come in the future. I find that's exciting and very interesting. It's just super fun. The villains are kind of wacky, but it's a kid's show. What are you going to do? It's meant for kids. It's not meant for me. But I still watch it because it's fun and I enjoy it. I do like certain episodes more than others. Some are more lore heavy, which is what I like personally, because we don't got a lot of backstory for certain characters, and it's like, why are they doing the things they do? So that's a bit of a problem with Miraculous sometimes, but overall, when they get it right, it's great. So I recommend trying it out. It might be for you, it might not be for you. But overall, I enjoy it, and I think it's worth a try. This next one is also an oldie but a goodie. It is Batman the Animated Series. This show is really great. For the time, it's really beautifully animated. I loved the show. I loved all the episodes. It was kind of like an anthology series with a different story each episode. There wasn't like a continuing story throughout, really, but I enjoyed it so much. I love Mark Hamill's Joker. I think he's the best. The episodes with him are the best in my opinion because I love Joker and I love Harley Quinn. So episodes with Joker and Harley Quinn are obviously my favorites. But I felt the show handled emotional trauma and the trauma of the villains very well, which was like, that's very like far off in the past, you know, and I'm talking about how nowadays I find that character arcs are very rushed and stuff like that. But for that show, they were ahead of their time. They took their time, they explored the villains, they made you feel empathy and sympathy for them, and it was just overall a great show. And it really delved into important topics as well that I really find are important. And I think any fan of Batman should watch it. I love Batman, so I actually really like the show. I think the animated series is just the best version of Batman and all the characters that we're ever going to get. And I don't think there's ever going to be a better show or movie. I really don't. So I suggest you watch it. This next show is also a video game kind of show, I guess you can say. It's a bit old, but not as old as some other ones. It's called Kirby Right Back At Ya. And not many people know about it. I personally think Kirby is the most adorable video game character, and that's why I wanted to watch the show. The show, from what I remember, was fun. It was entertaining. King Dedede was hilarious. The show was really great. It did have an overarching story. You figure that out a little bit later, but I think it was great. The show was amazing. It covered the lore of Kirby pretty okay, I would say. They did do more lore towards the end, but overall, I really enjoyed the show. And I would recommend it for video game fans of Kirby, or just people who think he's the most adorable little guy and just want to see more of him. And yeah. Alright, so this next one isn't an animation show per se, but it is anime. And usually I'm not into anime. The only anime I've ever seen is Sonic X. But believe it or not, this anime is phenomenal and everybody's been talking about it. And I personally fell in love with it. And the premise is exactly what I like. It's another kind of like hidden identity kind of show. The show is called Spy Family, for those of you who have not heard of it. It is great. And it is amazing. You got this spy who has to like make a fake family, and for those of you wondering how he does that, I will not spoil it for you. Because even when I was speculating, like, how the hell do you make a family and how long does he have? A week he has? That's not possible, is it? They explain it, and it's really well done. I didn't even think of it for some reason, even though it was pretty obvious how he could have done it. Anyway, I love all the characters. Lloyd, who's the spy, he's pretty great. I love his character, and he's so smart, and he's like a really good spy. You can tell they show it a lot. He's really smart. He's a master of disguise. He's just phenomenal, and you can tell. His wife is a secret assassin. Her name is Yor, and she is great at her job too. She can be quite scary, but she can also be very innocent and adorable, and it's really wacky how she switches between the personalities. And their daughter, Anya, she is great. She is phenomenal. She has a secret of her own. She is a kind of a mind reader, and it's really interesting because none of these guys know any of these secrets about each other. And I'm excited for the time when secrets are revealed, but the show just started. It's only season 1, so probably not gonna happen for a while. But I love the show, and I think it is great, and I highly recommend it. The last show on this list is Hasbro's Transformers Prime. Now, this animated show was really great. I think it's the best Transformers thing out there. The movies are okay, but this show was phenomenal. I loved everything about it. From what I can remember, because it's been a long time since I watched it, I loved the human characters. I loved the Autobots and their characters. They had development, which was really cool. I loved the exploration of the lore of Cybertron and all that stuff, and the past between Optimus Prime and what was the villain's name again? I keep forgetting names. Megatron. And we got to see their past and stuff like that. And it was just a really interesting show. I enjoyed it. If you're a Transformers fan, I think you should really watch it. It's really fun and entertaining, and I enjoyed it a lot. So those are my top 10 favorite animated series. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it may have been a little wonky, and I could have talked a whole lot more about these shows. Like, there's so much stuff I could have talked about, but then we'd be here all day. So anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.